Did everybody have an enjoyable time with our first sessions? Who was out at the mental health session over there? Raise a hand here. That was really great. And I got to pop my head in at the end there of the research session over here. That was incredible. Who was over in this room to my left? That was amazing. Yeah, give it up for our speakers. Truly amazing. And he wouldn't want me to do this because he's so humble, but I want to give a shout out to Steve for filling in. Steve Spalding, excellent job. He's shaking his head over there. He prepared a great session, kind of on last minute's notice, and rehearsed it. And you would have never known he hadn't had this plan for months ahead of time. So excellent job. Give him a round of applause one more time. That was really great. Extremely informative. So before we bring up our keynoter for this lunch, we want you to continue eating, of course. We want you to enjoy the meal here. But I just want to point our attention to what's going on this afternoon so you kind of know what's going on. We have the Digital Health in the ALS Clinic Command Trial with Dr. Geronimo and Dr. Lacomas. That's going to be right here in the main ballroom starting at 1:15. So we're going to have the great keynoter here, and then we're going to take a brief break, check out our vendors, and then we'll get set up for that one. And then we have a double event, once again, in our Ross and Adams rooms. We have the ongoing research efforts at the Neuroscience Institute at Jersey Shore University Medical Center with Dr. Sedaris will be here. And in our Adams room, Expanding Hope, Jefferson Weinberg ALS Center Experience with Expanded Access Programs with Melissa Warren. So we've got a lot of great programs coming up, and including, yes, I think maybe Melissa's at that table? No? She is. There she is. Okay, their table's supporting Melissa. So she'll be up. She'll be in our Adams room along with Dr. Sedaris in our Ross room this afternoon. And, of course, our Digital Health and ALS Clinic happening right here in the main ballroom. But we have a very, very special keynoter. And to tell you more about that, I want to bring up the other Jeff, the more important Jeff, Jeff Klein, our Executive Director here of ALS United Mid-Atlantic.
Thank you, Jeff. So did everybody make a friend, a new friend? And did you learn something you didn't know before? I'm assuming the answer is yes. The connections that are being made, my own personal ones, but I can just feel it in the room. That's the purpose of today. It's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today. Carol Hamilton is the Senior Vice President of ALS Therapy Development Institute, otherwise known as ALS TDI. Many of our families here today have been active with ALS TDI over the years, so we're especially grateful that Carol could join us. Now, with our new identity as ALS United Mid-Atlantic, we endeavor to unite the entire ALS community to advance our mutual goal of ending ALS. Carol has been working on the goal to end ALS for nearly 20 years. She joined ALS TDI in 2005 as a volunteer consultant after her friend's brother was diagnosed. Since then, she has been active in advocacy by using her personal story and expertise to effectively advocate for greater funding for ALS research programs. Now, as Senior Vice President of Development, Carol is active in many programs to educate the ALS community and accelerate clinical trials. This is the future of ALS research and advocacy, our shared future. As you've seen already today, and we'll see in upcoming presentations, ALS United Mid-Atlantic is committed to work with anyone and everyone to do all we can to find effective treatments for ALS and improve the quality of life for people living with the disease. When you attend one of our events, you will know that your efforts are directly benefiting families right here in our region. With that in mind, before Carol speaks, I do want to recognize the members of our care team who are here today. Collectively, they literally have centuries of experience caring for people with ALS. If you know someone who has been impacted by the disease, there is a good chance one of these exceptional professionals has helped them. Could our members of our care services team just either wave your hand or stand up? Okay, they're around the room. Thank you. Okay, now back to our presentation. Today, Carol's going to speak about the ALS Research Collaborative, which is the longest running and most comprehensive natural history study in the ALS world. Please welcome Carol and give her all of your attention. Thank you.
Well, hi, ALS Mid-Atlantic. As Jeff said, well, I'd like to say that I share in Jeff's excitement to be able to open the doors of what ALS TDI is doing and some of the tools we've built to help people with ALS, and delighted to have the doorway open so I could have as many great conversations as I've already had today with people in your community. It's just been wonderful, and thank you, Mr. Russo, for introducing us so that we could all gather here today. So yes, my name is Carol Hamilton. Hold on, I'm going to get used to this computer for a second. There we go. What are you guys seeing? Perfect. Our mission at ALS TDI, the ALS Therapy Development Institute, which you'll probably hear me call TDI for short. Don't tell our marketing people, we get in trouble for that. Our mission is simple. It's to develop treatments for ALS as quickly as possible. But here's the thing. If you have ALS and can raise your hand, go for it. If you can't figuratively raise it in your hand, I will feel your karma. We can't possibly be successful in our mission unless you guys help us. I'm not kidding. Like, it's not like, oh, if you help us, people with ALS can be helpful. We can't do it unless you help. So I'm here to tell you how you can do it and why it'll make it go faster if you do. We're going to make it easy for you. So first, let me tell you a little bit of backstory. Here's where we came from. See that picture in a family basement right there? So the guy in the orange shirt was, that's Stephen Haywood. He was diagnosed with ALS when he was 27, and his family were and are all mostly MIT-trained engineers who said, okay, whose job is it to cure ALS? I want to call them and tell them to hurry the heck up. And they realized that our medical research paradigm isn't set up that way, and they said, okay, we'll take ownership of the problem. A little ballsy, but hey, thanks for doing it. So they set up shop in their basement, which is where you see them right there. And they held a fundraiser, and not knowing what the heck they were doing, they started what is now, as you see on the right, the largest independent ALS research institute in the world. So when you're feeling powerless, know that your family, maybe you're not going to do this. I mean, that was a biggie. But you can have an effect on this world. It also says on that third tab that we're cheap. That's basically what the third tab says. We are super, super cheap. 87 cents of the dollar goes straight into the lab. This is Andy Moreno. He's real. Everybody that you will see in these pictures are real people. They are not actors. Andy is one of our scientists who's been here pretty much from the beginning. If you follow ALS TDI on Instagram, I don't know if you saw it today, Michelle. That's Michelle Dupree, folks, from ALS TDI, too. They put up a picture of the people who formed we were then called ALS TDF Foundation, from year one. And there are about 5 people in that photo that are at the company still. These are people not staying because you make a fortune at a nonprofit, but they are staying because people with ALS and their families walk through our labs every single solitary day. And they develop friendships with them. Come on up to Boston. We'll show you around. You'll meet them. They'll give you your cell phone numbers. You will have someone to ask questions about research for. That's what we're here for. These guys at Mid-Atlantic can always get to us. My card is out on the table, so is Michelle's. When you have research questions, let us help you in any way we can. We spend our days talking to families. But these guys stay because they want to be that to you too, and because ALS is kind of the hardest nut to crack, right? You guys have a lot of heterogeneity in this disease, and it makes it harder to solve it. So they want to be on the team that does. And Andy is one of those people who's been here from the very beginning. So you can see on this slide that we discover and invent drugs. We do the preclinical work. We don't have the budget to run a clinical trial. So it's us that are creating the at-bats that then a for-profit company, in most cases a virtual biotech, drug company, whatever it is, we'll take it into clinical trial. That's the second bullet point, partnering. And we're going to do this over and over and over and over again until there's a drug for everybody. Because the drug that works for you may not work for John. The drug that works for Stacy may not work for somebody else. So we're going to keep doing it until every faction of this community has something. We'll go down trying if we have to. We've tested over 500 drugs in the lab, more than the rest of the world combined. We've only had about 4 or 5 yeses. But you know what? Our yeses are coming faster. We would go 10, 15 years without a yes before, but because people with ALS are helping us, we know more now, and our yes rate is faster. We have 2 drugs right now that we intend to move towards the clinic. That's pretty good. We are a nonprofit biotech. Kind of makes you have to stand on your head to figure out, right? You are the investors, not necessarily with money, but we are beholden to you. You are our bosses, right? We work for this community. It's the only reason we're here. So know that. Use us. And as you'll see, we launched ARC, the ALS Research Collaborative, and that's going to be the main part of my talk. But before we talk about that, I want to tell you about one other really cool tool that we've recently developed called the Trial Navigator. Anybody here in a clinical trial right now that is able to physically show me? Okay, well that ain't much. And that says a couple of things. 1, it's hard to figure out what kind of trial to be in. 2, it's hard to know if you want to be in a trial or not, right? It's a risk. So the Trial Navigator is a way to help you kind of walk through all of those decisions. It's overwhelming. You don't know what the words mean. The drugs have 95 syllables to them. You don't know what an astrocyte is, but now you hopefully know what an antisense oligonucleotide is, whoever just gave that talk, right? So we've made it a little bit more comfortable for you. If anyone has ever done TurboTax, I use TurboTax, and I like that they're like so nice to me the whole way. They like tell me I'm pretty. They hold my hand. They're like, "Don't worry, it's cool. You can't find that thing for your health insurance. It's okay. We'll wait for you, and we'll play you nice music." And you're like, "Thank you, TurboTax." That's kind of what this is like. Instead of going on clinicaltrials.gov where they're like mad at you and saying big words, and you go, screw it. I'm too scared. I'm too overwhelmed. We got you. So if you're looking for a trial, this allows you to curate and personalize the process. Decide what's important to you. It will ask you questions, and the whole way through, it's going to tell you how many trials that you are choosing. And at the end, you'll print out a list. It'll have QR codes for every single solitary trial, and then you will bring them to your clinician to discuss, what do you think? This is what I got. What do you think I should look at? And you could look at everything from, I'm only interested in trials with a 3-to-1 placebo ratio. No placebo. I'm only interested in trials that have an open label extension. For those of you who have had the disease for a while, you can look up programs that are about expanded access. So it's not just, the closest clinic. So use that. This is the first question we get every day when we talk to families is, what do you think of this trial? Well, that's not really our place to say, right? But we can help you identify some and then talk to your doctors who are way smarter than we are. So use that tool. You can use your phone right now to do that QR code, or you can see Michelle and me at the very purple table out in the lobby where you can take one of these. You don't care about this. We're cool. We're awesome. We do everything. Here's proof. This is really hard for me because I usually run around, and I can't because you won't be able to hear me. Would anyone Michelle, will you run around for me? So here is our role in the drug discovery process. On the left, look, there's a microscope, but you're way over on the right. you need that drug to pass over, I don't know, whatever harbor that is. So it is our job to make sure that what we learn in ALS matters and gets to the people living with the disease. So over on the left is fundamental research. Sometimes it's called basic research, which sounds insulting, and it's not. Thank God people do it. It's usually done in the academic arena. It might be where a gene has been discovered. It might be where we're learning more about the biology of the disease, although we do some of that too at TDI. And then we really kind of own those three middle parts: drug discovery, lead optimization, and IND enabling. Let me explain why there are also those funny symbols up on top. Looks like sharks, rats, and I don't know, hexagons. They are none of those things. They are cells, right? Something you test drugs in. Those are zebrafish, another model we can use, particularly for C9orf ALS. And those are mice, which are also a model in drug testing in ALS. So drug discovery is where we're taking some of the information that we've learned from fundamental research, basic research, and saying, okay, did you identify a target for us to aim drugs at? And if they did, do you hear me if I stand here? Okay, cool. Let's start developing those drugs to aim at those targets. That's what the drug discovery part is. The lead optimization is, okay, now let's make them better. Sometimes you have two molecules that you can aim at the same target, but one causes some side effect and one doesn't. Well, let's optimize that lead. Let's get the better one. When you get to IND enabling, that's the work that the FDA requires of you before you can put a drug in people, right? Because we have to make sure that it's safe, and we want to know it's safe by doing more than testing it in a mouse or a fish. So often it involves continued mammalian testing, and it's the place where we're doing the pharmacology, the pharmacokinetics and dynamics, where we determine if we're really getting to where we want to go with that arrow that we've aimed at that target, what dosages, how the drug is going to be delivered. Is it a pill? Is it a liquid? Is it delivered intrathecally? That's all done in IND enabling work. The FDA requires it. We usually work with partners to get that part of the work done. We don't have larger mammals and all of this in our lab. We work off an $11 million a year budget, so we just plain old can't afford them. Then it gets to the clinical trials. Finally, the drug is getting to you. So we're doing all of that kind of risky work. Our job is to de-risk that investment for a biotech or a pharma, right? Most drugs fail. Unfortunately, you guys see that all the time. Sometimes drugs succeed, as we've recently seen, and then fail. Only in ALS, right? So we're doing all that unseen work, de-risking that investment for pharma, because in all honesty, if a pharma executive or a pharma company makes a freaking fortune off an ALS drug, yahoo for them. Win-win for all of us. That's our goal. So we'll de-risk that so that we can then say, here's a data package. We think this drug works. Go, run with it. Make your investors a fortune. That's a good thing. Oh, look, there's exactly what I just said. This is Andrea Lytle-Pete. She is a real person as well. Hardly, because she is a superstar. If you don't know her, Andrea has been living with ALS for 8 years, and she has just year before last, finished participating in 50 marathons in 50 states. Can you imagine? On a recumbent trike. And I got to be there in Alaska when she completed her 50th marathon. My knees gave out because I was crying so hard. Hers did not. She was laughing perfectly fine. A movie has been made about her called Go On, Be Brave. If you want to watch it, it's really fabulous. And she is here modeling our accelerometers. Now we're going to talk about how you guys, people with ALS, are going to help us get to this answer faster. You have, as I said to somebody earlier today, you have a lot of the answers. You have a lot of the information that we need inside your bodies, but you're going to be pissed if we cut you open. So we've got to find a way to get that data out of you without pissing you off so much. That's our job. Here's how you can help. Here are some of the things we collect. We're going to talk about each one in detail. All of this in the ARC study. Please join it, please join it, please join it, please join it. You help everybody, including yourself. We're going to go into detail on each aspect of the program, but all of this can be done from home. The first one you will recognize, we track your ALS FRS score. We assess your we record your personal background. We follow your speech in ALS. We do genetic testing, although we are not, when you say, I want a genetic test in ALS, we're not who you come to. We can help you with that if you need it. But this is whole genome sequencing, transcriptome, all the omics. And then you saw Andrea wearing the accelerometer. That's activity tracking. And we collect blood from certain participants to identify blood-based biomarkers like neurofilament light chain, which you've probably heard something about. And we can imagine being able to look at all of that together, right? Like clinical trials are tracking neurofilament light chain. We're all dying for the FDA to say, yes, that is accepted as a biomarker of disease, but we've got to get more data, and we've got to be able to show the FDA this is actually what happens to people while their NFL rises or decreases, right? This is physically what they're like. This is what their strength is like. This is what their voice tracking is. That's the way we do it. And imagine if eventually all you had to do using this speech stuff that we talked about was call an 800 number to find out if a drug was working for you. Are you intrigued? Stay tuned. We'll get there. First, ALS FRS, blah, blah, blah. You're probably sick of it, right? You all know that it is a set of questions that are scored from 1 to 4. You have a score from 0 to 48. It is only whole numbers. It does not wait for things like that require breathing. You know, your handwriting and your breathing capabilities are judged with those same 4 whole numbers. That's kind of whacked, but it's all we've got. But we know it lacks sensitivity. But for now, it's what we have. So we track it for a couple of reasons that you'll see. We're putting that in the ALS Research Collaborative. By the way, if you join this program, you get this proprietary web portal. You can share it with your friends, you can share it with your family, you can share it with your doctor, whatever you want. But we share all of the data back to us that you give us, and we'll share it back to you in forms that may be more helpful for you to look at. But ALS FRS, it's a number, it's a whole number. You know what it is, you enter it into the computer. That was easy. You're already part of ARC. Now, we do online surveys. We do a lot of them. This is the part that you're going to go, God, Carol seemed nice, but this is a pain in the butt. But it matters. There is a real gap in between what we know about disease onset and environment, right? Everybody talks to us about it. What did I do? Was it the exposure I had to toxins, pesticides? Was it the fact that I lived in an area that was a cluster? So many people we've talked to today have talked about, back surgeries and discectomies that they've had. Did that sort of physical trauma, a head and neck injury, exacerbate disease, bring the disease on? We need to learn about that. So we're going to ask you those questions. And I'm going to tell you in a couple of minutes how cool it is that the people who have come before you that are already in this program answered some of these questions, and cool stuff's happening because of it. So we're going to look at your family history. We're going to look at your lifestyle, all the things that are here. You're going to answer those questions. If you answer yes to the wrong question, you're going to get another survey. I'm really sorry. But if you say you're a vet, we want to know more about you. So this is important. When everybody comes to us and says, why do you think I got ALS? This is how we're going to find out. Please help us find out why you got ALS. Speech tracking. All of us can hear the difference between someone who was diagnosed with ALS today and someone who's had it for 10 years. But how do you quantify it? Right? That was kind of hard. So when we first started collecting these voice recordings of people with ALS calling into an 800 number, I know I'm dating myself. shush, but it's kind of that. And saying a set of 5 phrases. Well, the original one was, I owe you a yo-yo today. We can kind of hear something in there with speech pathology. I don't know what it is, but you can kind of hear something. And then you record it again a month later and a month after that. So what we're listening to is dysarthria, right? That's the process of the voice degrading a little bit. So we had all of this, and we could all hear the difference. Anybody here could. But how do you quantify it? So we went to Google, who were kind of the AI kings and queens, right, in voice work, and we said, can you help us? And they said, yeah, and we'll do it for free because we're Google and we have a lot of money. I said, thank you, Google. And they developed an algorithm that analyzes our vocal data. And what we have found, remember how we talked about the ALSRP a minute ago, and it's a little insensitive, it's a little subjective. Well, this is hard data, and it's more than whole numbers. It's integers, right? It goes down into fractions. So what I'd like to say is it's 10 times more sensitive than the ALSFRS, except I'm wrong. Every scientist who I have ever said that in front of, and there's probably some of you out here right now saying, that's not exactly what that means. It's close enough, for God's sake. So, and it's objective, right? This isn't you saying, ugh, my handwriting's okay, you know. This is hard data. So we are finding it is mimicking the ALSFRS score. So like I said, imagine if someday you're in a trial, you call an 800 number, you say, I owe you a yo-yo today, and they say, drug's working. Well, that'd be pretty cool. And it's really kind of possible. And the more people who contribute data, the faster we will get there. Next is activity tracking. This is where you get to create a story that you are a white-collar criminal. They look just like ankle bracelets. I mean, I've heard some good stories. You will wear these on your wrists and ankles for a few days a month. We will put them in a FedEx envelope. They will show up at your house. Inside that FedEx envelope will be another FedEx envelope with the return address. You will send them back because we're a nonprofit. We don't have enough money for you to keep them. We get them back. We clean them. We upload all of the information. We put it all into the data portal that you get to see. We share it all the way back with you. And then we send them out to the next person. You're going to wear them passively, as we call it, for as much time as you possibly can. If you're going to somebody's wedding and it doesn't match your dress, don't. But again, you'd make for a good story. You don't have to sleep with them. But the more you wear them, you're going to see a study in a couple of minutes that looked at the passive activity of these accelerometers, and it's meaningful. The more you wear them, the better, but we totally get it. We want this to be low burden. We were born because of people with ALS. We don't want this to be too hard for you. But 3 days a week, 3 of those days, you're going to put them on, and you're going to press a button, or somebody's going to press a button, or you're going to use your eye gaze to press a button on your computer. And suddenly our friend Ken, who is our vice president of operations and was Stephen Haywood's best friend, the guy for whom we started, he's still here, is going to be seen on a video doing seated arm raises, leg raises, and kind of toe touches, like trunk, bending at the trunk. If you can't do it, you don't do that part of the program. If you can do some of those things, great. We want your data. We get it. We're not trying to score how good a toe toucher you are, for Christ's sakes. We're trying to find out how to end this disease. So if you can participate in that part, great. If you can't, that's okay. But you're going to press that video, and what that does is that gives us the apples to apples every month to compare, right? If you're just wearing it passively and you're not doing the same time each thing, we don't have apples to compare to apples longitudinally. So all of that goes into your data portal. Let's see if magically my next slide shows you what a data... Oh, look, again, everything I just said. There, so see that graph, right? That's what it looks like. Each one of those is a limb that is wearing an accelerometer. You can start to see a little bit of a trend, right? And also in your portal will not only be your accelerometer tracking graph, but your speech. And you'll be able to kind of see your disease progression mapped out for you. Now, it's imperfect, it's dirty, because this disease doesn't make anything easy. But you could print that out, bring it to your doctor, say, here's how my progression is tracking. Let's look at it again after I take this medication, or I change this protocol, right? So many people say, I don't know if it's helping me or not, right? How could you know? But if you have a plotted disease trajectory, you and your clinician may be able to talk about if something is helping you or not. And we have a remote blood collection. Like I said, so a phlebotomist and a kit arrives at your door once a quarter. You don't have to leave home. The kit comes back to us. We do whole genome sequencing. We can also basically recharacterize and create IPS lines from blood now and use those as models, cellular models of ALS. And again, we're looking at blood-based biomarkers. Okay, here's my trend in accelerometry, right? And whoa, look at my trend at neurofilament light chain. It's the same. That's going to tell the FDA something. That's going to make clinical trials easier for you. That's going to make diagnosis easier for clinicians. That's going to tell you what your risk level really is when you're thinking about clinical trials. Really valuable. Now, last year, we even found a way, we're so smart, we even found a way to integrate electronic health records. So, there hasn't been a way, where's my friend who had the 2 discectomies? There you are. There hasn't been a way, right, for that to comprehensively be recorded before. We want to know, did you have a fall? Are you a 2-time cancer survivor? Oh, God, you're all sitting next to each other. Look at that. Is there something in your medical history that matters and is common with somebody else? Can we look at your past, your blood, your movement ability, your voice, your NFL, and say, you're a subgroup, right? That's what we kind of have to do in ALS. We have to divide this into subgroups that we can treat, because it's not going to use, one drug ain't going to cut it. So you can help us, and you do that. The electronic health records, now we have to build the system for that data to be able to be mined rather than just seen and harmonized. But we're getting there. We just started it. Now look at this, right? There's that, basically another way of looking at that bridge sign. And look at that. All of those parts are touched by the ALS Research Collaborative, ARC. What we just talked about, every single one of those parts is touched by this. It matters. We can't do this without people with ALS helping. I'm sorry, like you have a ton on your plates, but we need your help. Here are the goals. Let's develop new drug targets. Let's identify digital biomarkers, right? Just like the voice that we talked about, being more sensitive than the ALS-FRS, yet mimicking it. Let's identify and validate blood-based biomarkers like NFL, for example. And let's partner with people like you and give you the tools that you can print out and bring into your doctor and say, this is something else I know about myself. What should we do? We're empowering you, blah, blah, blah. I hate that word, like, we're empowering you. But we are, I suppose. We got permission from our IRB, the Internal Review Board, to expand this program. We have 1,000 people who have been followed since 2014. We started this with the Ice Bucket Challenge money. There are 35 terabytes of data that have been collected by your friends with ALS. We now can bring in 1,000 more, and we're including asymptomatic gene carriers, which is a really big deal. Basically, you get this. It's low burden. You stay at home. Now, that last bullet point, that's a big deal because I'm about to talk about that now. So we have those 35 terabytes of data. We are 35 scientists, work for us, working solely for ALS, therapeutic development at all times. 35 scientists can't develop drugs for ALS and mine through 35 terabytes of data all at the same time. So we need help. And we want, it requires me to be more of a grown-up than I am, quite honestly, but we are agnostic as to who gets the medication that's going to help you. I kind of want it to be us because I throw a really good party. But really, we want to make sure that we help any program. And the way we can do that is by sharing that 35 terabytes of data and making sure that every ALS researcher on the globe can mine it. So Dr. Geronimo and I were talking about this earlier today. He can have access to it. Drug companies can access it. We ask everybody to sign a data use agreement. Then people can mine it. Let's say you're a researcher in, I don't know, Bangladesh, and you want to look at the progression rates of people with C9orf72 between the ages of 35 and 45 who have been diagnosed in the last 2 years. You can do that, and you can go down deep, and you can look at the suballeles on genetic mutations that we may not have known were relevant to ALS. But if you combine that allele with a C9orf72 mutation, it might mean something. I'm making all of this up, but you get what I mean. You know, we need everybody's help to do this. So we are sharing all of that data with everyone across the world. And here's what it looks like. That's the portal where people will start going in and digging in as far as they want to. And we do already have academics, other nonprofits, and pharma companies mining this data already. And here's proof. Here are 3 publications. We were talking about this earlier too. That thanks to ARC, the ALS Research Collaborative, that you're all now going to be a part of, 3 publications and 3 big deals that are already happening. Remember we talked about, well, this is out of order, but what's the first one that we have here? DoD biomarker, right? The Department of Defense is interested in ALS, thank God. They have an ALS research program. It brings a lot of money to all of us who apply for funds. And they helped us expand our blood-based biomarker program so that we're working with a company called SomaLogic that allows us to do proteomics at the scale of about 6,000 proteins that we're able to look at any one given time. And this has identified opportunities already in drugs like Alzheimer's and rheumatoid arthritis, which is funny that we were also just talking about that. So that's pretty cool. Then, the CDC, remember we talked about how does lifestyle affect ALS? Well, the CDC wants to know. So they saw ARC and saw all those surveys that I'm apologizing to you for that you're going to have to do. They saw those and said, okay, we might really be able to learn about lifestyle. We might really be able to see if people in this section of the country or the world are experiencing ALS more. We may be able to see that head and neck injuries preceding diagnoses exacerbate disease. Let's look. So now we are looking more closely at that, thanks to funding from CDC. Rick Bedlack, which a name that a lot of people know from Duke, has a reversals program. So what we are doing now is we are collecting the blood of 30, I think, of the 50 people who have been deemed reversals. We are doing whole genome sequencing. We are looking at certain protein levels and starting to see commonalities. It may not go anywhere. Things look like there's going to be a trend in the beginning when you do science, and then it goes away pretty fast. But we're trying. We're going to try to figure out, are reversals real? And biologically, what might there be? Again, right? It matters to you to know what your risk level is. You know, if you're a slow progressor and you're doing great after 8 years, you might not want to get in that particular clinical trial. But if you're progressing quickly, you know, you have a different risk level. This is the kind of thing that will help us to understand that. Then in the bottom there, you see a publication based on ARC data from Mass General Hospital based on that passive wearing time that we talked about with accelerometry. So yes, super, super important to have those apples to apples where you're doing those exercises, but the more you wear them, the more we're learning, and it's a publication on that. So thank you to absolutely everyone who has been a part of ARC already and has made those things possible. And thank you to everyone else who hopefully will join. You'll also see on this last slide, because I was too fast to thank everybody, but I really am pretty appreciative that we took another step and joined Answer ALS, who has clinical data. Our data, by the way, is ongoing. It will never stop. And we are contributing all of the data together for the largest ALS data set like ever. Each of them was the largest already. So you will be part of that too. So thank you. Oh, look, Andrea thanks you. And our researchers thank you. So again, my name is Carol Hamilton. I'll be here all day. We'll be out at the purple table. I have my business card. My colleague Michelle is here. ALS Mid-Atlantic. Thanks. Thanks, you guys. Really delighted. Thank you all.